So how do we get blood and gases around your body? We're going to look at this real movement of organism-wide cardiovascular system in a little while, but what we want to think about is very basically that your heart is going to be pumping blood, right? I hope you know that. And it's going to pump it actually to two regions. The right side of your heart, pumps blood to the lungs. So that means the right side of your heart is very low in oxygen. The blood inside your heart, not your heart muscle. Okay, so inside your heart. So if we look at your heart, the right side of your heart, this is where we can start thinking about heart diagram and body diagram pictures. You have to pretend that this heart is in an organism that is sitting here looking at me. I know the heart to head ratio is a little off there. But the right side of the heart, okay? So you have to think about, if this is the right side of my heart, it's actually pumping blood out to my lungs, which surround my heart. And then the blood is going to return from the lungs to the left side of my heart and eventually get pumped out to the body. So the left side of the heart pumps blood to the body. And we hope that this is very, very high in oxygen. So when we pump that blood into the lungs, the idea is it's going to pick up oxygen and drop off carbon dioxide. At the tissues within the body, it's dropping off oxygen and picking up carbon dioxide. You have to know where you're doing gas exchange to know what is going what direction. In your blood vessels and capillaries, we deal a lot with partial pressure. We're going to come back to this in cardiovascular, so I don't want to belabor it here. But you need to think concentration gradient. Everything will move. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, anything like this is going to move based on partial pressure. The gases in the alveoli in your lungs should have high amounts of O2, should have high oxygen. This is from the environment, right? And should have less CO2 compared to your blood. If this is correct, then we get oxygen moving from your alveoli into the blood. We get carbon dioxide moving from the blood into your alveoli, and we exchange gases. At the tissue level, the tissues have more carbon dioxide. Remember, this is waste. Then they have oxygen. So if they've got good exchange with the blood, if the blood is full of oxygen, it means that the blood is going to exchange that carbon dioxide and oxygen at the tissue level. So we'll move carbon dioxide from the tissues to the blood and oxygen from the blood to the tissues. Rinse, repeat. We do this over and over and over again all day long, right? This constant exchange, oxygenated air coming into your lungs, we exchange at the alveoli, we move around your body, we exchange at the tissues, we return eventually to your lungs, get rid of the carbon dioxide, pick up more oxygen. So we see this all the time. Here's the right side of your heart. So you have to picture this as the right side of the body. I know this is hard, but this is like you're looking down on someone that's laying facing up at you, okay? And this is the left side of the body. So the right side pumping out to the lungs, and we see that. We're moving out here to the lungs. It's blue, remember, because that equals low oxygen. And then we return to the heart. We return to the left side of the heart, bringing back highly oxygenated blood. Red equals high oxygen. And then from the left side of our heart, we're going to go out to our entire body. The brain Don't forget the brain. We're going to go down to your feet. We're going to supply the heart itself. The heart is muscle. It has to get a good supply of oxygen and blood. And we'll look at that when we do the cardiovascular system. So there's a whole lot going on, but we've got to keep in mind that there are two separate loops to the respiratory system. One is what we call pulmonary, okay, and one we call systemic. So moving out to the body versus moving out to the lungs. Lung is pulmonary. When we move around and we're moving oxygen and carbon dioxide, we move oxygen preferentially because you need it. Now, for you, we use hemoglobin. It's an iron-based compound inside your red blood cells, used by most vertebrates and many of the invertebrates. And it's going to transport oxygen. And it will also, we'll look at later, it also transports carbon dioxide. But that's a different story we'll talk about later on. We can also look at a copper-based pigment that's actually blue in color. So there are organisms that have blue-looking blood. They are mollusks, snails, squid, and arthropods. Bugs. Most vertebrates and many of the invertebrates, though, have this red hemoglobin, iron-containing hemoglobin, so blood looks red. I told you that it will change in brightness depending on oxygen levels. But you do not have blue blood. Sorry. So we see these heme groups. When we talked about enzymes, we called these prosthetic groups that are going to be permanently bound. Okay, to this protein. It's an enzyme, right? Its job is to carry oxygen around your body. It's very much an enzyme. So we look at this exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen working on your hemoglobin molecules in your red blood cells. We will look at this more later, but this is where we target whether or not you breathe, because this is what changes your blood pH. If you have high levels of carbon dioxide in water, you make carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is what decreases the pH or makes it more acidic in your bloodstream. That carbonic acid is what your brain recognizes as low pH, which means you need to increase oxygen carbon dioxide exchange, which means you increase how many times you breathe per minute. This works well for you as an adult. As an infant, this would not have worked so well, because as an infant, as a fetus in particular, not just an infant, as a fetus, you don't breathe with lungs. You are completely dependent on mom to provide you with oxygen-rich blood. Thanks, Mom. Now, you are not going to share blood, okay? There is no sharing of blood between mom and the fetus. No. Instead, what we look at is the placenta as exchanging gases. And what we look particularly at is the fact that fetal hemoglobin is very, very good. It has a very high affinity for oxygen. It actually has a higher affinity for oxygen than adult forms of hemoglobin, which means that the fetus is going to be taking as much oxygen as it possibly can away from mom. At birth, the carbon dioxide in the fetal blood goes sky high. It's the first time the lungs are inflating with air. We've got to get them going. So the brain says, hey, we've got high CO2, which means low pH, which means you need to breathe. Now, to get those pH levels back in balance, get the carbon dioxide down. But in the womb, in mom, this is what the circulatory system looks like as it ties into mom and the baby. And you notice that the placental blood supply is what's really important here, and it's exchanging gases through the placenta. This is not mom's blood dumps into baby, and no. Okay, we get good exchange at the placenta of oxygen and carbon dioxide from baby to mom and back.